Today, we're getting into a topic that is truly one of the absolute cornerstones of ethical research: informed consent. Now, it might sound simple, but believe me, it is packed with all sorts of nuance, debate, and some really big questions about where we draw the line between the search for knowledge and basic human rights.
So let's just jump right into the deep end, shall we? Is it ever okay for a researcher to lie for science? I mean, that's a tough one, isn't it? It really puts two important things against each other: our drive to discover new things versus a person's absolute right to know what's happening to them. And this isn't just some abstract thought experiment. It's a very real problem researchers have wrestled with for a long, long time.
Some of the most well-known studies in history, like the Milgram experiments, where people thought they were actually giving painful electric shocks to another person, were built on deception. And researchers have used all kinds of tricky methods, like covert observation, where people have no idea they're even part of a study. Obviously, these things raise some massive ethical red flags, and they are precisely why we need a clear, strong principle like informed consent. So, to find a way through this ethical maze, the research world had to establish a core principle, a guiding star, if you will. And that principle, of course, is consent. Okay, so here's the official definition, but every single word here matters. Basically, informed consent means you have to tell people everything about a study: the good, the bad, what might happen, what won't, so that they can make a totally free choice about whether they want in. No pressure, no funny business. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of it. This isn't just about paperwork or following some rule. It comes from something much, much deeper: a person's fundamental right to have freedom and control over their own lives. It's really all about respecting their autonomy. And this is so important to understand. Consent is not a one-and-done deal where you sign a form and forget about it. No, it's supposed to be an ongoing conversation, a process built on communication and respect that carries through the entire study. It's all about building trust. So, how does this all work in the real world? Well, for consent to actually be considered valid, it has to have four essential ingredients. They all have to be there. Let's break them down.
All right, here we go. First up, competence. The person has to be capable of thinking it through and making a rational decision. Second, voluntarism. Their choice has to be 100% their own with zero pressure. Third, full information. And we're going to dig into that one in a sec. And finally, number 4, comprehension. And this is key. It's not enough to just throw information at someone. They have to actually get it. They have to understand what it all means.
Now, that third element, full information, isn't just some vague concept. And what's so great here is that this checklist gives you a real sense of the level of detail we're talking about. It shows you everything a researcher should be covering to make sure someone is truly informed. So let's plot a few of the big ones. Full information means you've got to explain exactly what's going to happen. You have to be upfront about any possible risks or even just discomforts. And this one's huge. You have to tell them they can ask questions whenever they want and that they are totally free to leave the study at any time for any reason with no penalty. That last part is absolutely critical. Okay, so the rules seem clear enough on paper, but you know how it is. The real world is almost never that black and white. There are a ton of situations where applying these principles gets really, really tricky. I mean, think about this. What about kids? A child can't legally give informed consent. They just might not have the mental capacity to really understand all the details and the risks involved. So, how do we ethically conduct research with children? Well, that's where this idea of gatekeepers comes into play. What happens is researchers have to go to the adults who are responsible for the child. Parents, guardians, sometimes teachers. It just adds another essential layer of protection, making sure someone is looking out for that child's best interests. And it gets even more complicated when we start talking about different cultures. The typical Western model of consent is very individualistic. It's one person signing one form. But that's not how the whole world works. In a lot of collectivist cultures, that decision might involve the entire family or maybe even community elders. A researcher showing up and demanding a signature could actually be seen as disrespectful, while a simple nod from a village elder might carry way more weight. And that brings us right back to where we started. What do we do about deception? If full information is a pillar of consent, how can you ever justify deceiving someone? This is, without a doubt, one of the biggest debates in all of research ethics.
You've got two really strong sides here. On one hand, some argue that if you tell people exactly what you're studying, it'll change how they act. It's this thing called the Hawthorne effect, the idea that we all behave differently when we know we're being watched. So the argument goes, you can't get real, authentic data without a little bit of deception. But the counterargument is just as strong. It's a direct violation of a person's right to choose for themselves, and it can completely erode the public's trust in science. It's basically saying the researcher's goals are more important than the participants' rights.
So after going through all these principles and all these complications, what's the big picture here? What are we really aiming for with all this? It's this, right here. It's about changing our whole mindset. We need to stop seeing people as subjects that we study and start seeing them as partners in the search for knowledge. Real informed consent is about building a relationship, one that's based on respect and trust. It's a collaboration. So, to wrap it all up, informed consent is way more than a box you check. It's a fundamental human right. It's a complicated conversation that has to be flexible enough to handle things like age, culture, and tough ethical calls. But at the end of the day, the goal is always, always the same: real understanding and real respect. It's about what's behind the signature, not just the signature itself. And I'll leave you with this final thought. This stuff doesn't just matter to researchers. It matters to all of us who read about their work. So the next time you see a headline about some amazing new study, maybe the first question you ask isn't just, what did they find out, but also, I wonder how they got consent. Thanks for joining me.